Okay. What happens when an individual feels slighted because you said something to them that they don't respect, but it's something that you believe in? Do you back down? Do you just shrug your shoulders? You have compassion? What do? You're being your real, true self, believing what you believe in and expressing it, but someone doesn't like it because it might touch them and hurt their feelings on what they think of themselves. Well, we got to be true to and authentic to what we believe. And of course, we don't go to try to hurt somebody else. But on the other hand, you got to be yourself. Got to be yourself. Yeah. All right. Welcome. Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. And we share it every day with Michael in Germany, TJ Terrence, Melbourne, Australia, June also in Australia, Jan is in Mexico, Rabbi in Morocco, Eugenia in Calgary, Brett in Pennsylvania, Zara in Malaysia, John in North Carolina, Louise also in Australia in Sydney, Leah in Florida, Amy in Colorado, Diane in Arizona, Stan in London, England, Josefa, oh, I got that wrong, Toledo, Spain, Miriam, New York, I think, definitely not a daily regular, so welcome. Rena in Colorado, Liba and Davida in New York, Cindy in Florida, Paula in Bakersfield, California, Rusty in Texas, David in California, Jan in Mexico, Vincent in Alberta, Sarah in New York, all regulars, except for maybe one. Michael, Celeste, Jay, regulars, day in, day out, amazing people you are. Akoy in Lima, Peru. David, welcome. D-Med, I don't know what D-Med means. Venta Televenta we have. Who else is here? Okay. Jane in the Philippines. Beautiful. What comes after the fact that you fix what you got to fix in your life? Own what you got to own in your life. The errors, the things that run us off track, the sins that bring a disconnect between us and God. And you dealt with it in the straight path as we spoke about, meaning that we have compassion over where our soul comes from, how divine it is, and what we have done to the divine, to God and His presence, brought it into exile. And when we think about that, it brings us to tshuva, to fix that part in my soul, to fix in the name of God, the latter hay in God's name that has fallen into klipa. We do tshuva to that hay, we tashuv hay, we return that hay. We return that hay to its rightful place. We return ourselves. So now what? You've done all of that. Amazing. Now what? Vacation. Life's a vacation. No more tshuva. I don't have to fix anything else in my life. I'm complete. No. Of course it doesn't end there. After the wind of forgiveness passes over the souls of the sinners and purifies them, meaning you got out of a bad place because there was negativity, there was blemishes on the soul, stain on the garments of self-expression of thought, speech, and action. But we've done all of that. But now, getting out of that bad place, you can go into a good space. You can literally return to God, to ascend to the highest heights, to the very source, and to cleave to the divine in a very remarkable manner of unity, the ultimate unity with God. What's that? The way our soul came down to this world, in and of itself, God had to blow into the body, the soul, that now made it a separate entity. But before blowing, right, as in before the blow, the air is within the individual, right? That part of them is united with them. Well, after we've owned and cleansed and fixed and got out of that bad place, now we go into that good space. That good space is a complete unity as the breath is before it is separated. That's a perfect tshuva, it's called. It's also tshuva, not a perfect tshuva. Same tshuva, tashuv hay, but it's a different hay we're returning now. Before we returned the last hay in God's name, which refers to speech in God. In our soul, it refers to our thought, speech, and action, garments of the soul. Meaning, we thought in a negative way, willfully. We spoke something that was inappropriate. We did something that is a transgression. We dealt with it. Returned the hay. We're getting now the flow of divinity from a higher place. The compassion of God. The supernal will of God that now brings a new flow of divine energy into us. Wonderful. But what's next? Well, next is return this hay. The former hay in God's name, which is Bina. And Bina comes together with Chachma, the two kind of inseparable. Right? Ben Yud K, as the Zohar explains. This is called Tshuva Ilah, the higher level of Tshuva, because this is the lower hay, this is the higher hay. So we're still doing Tshuva. But now it's not over anything that we did wrong. It's just the idea of a movement of the soul that is always returning, desiring for more closeness, more of a cleaving, more of a unity. How will it express itself? So the first one expresses itself is over owning your stuff, having compassion over the root of your soul and the divine presence of God that is in exile, that we have tarnished, and therefore having a contrite heart and moving things back through regret, accepting upon ourselves, that we won't stray from the godly path, the good path. This one, well, you're out of a bad space, out of a bad place, no longer that. But the good space is that it expresses itself, this tshuva, through engaging in the study of Torah with reverence and love of God. As we will learn further, it's not just in the study of Torah, it will be through Torah and mitzvahs in general, but now it's expressing itself in, you're learning now. Earlier you dealt with whatever you got to deal with, right? For our prayers, and we'll learn more about that too, how prayer expresses this idea. But this is returning the former Hey, which is Bina, and which is connected to the Yud, Chochmah, Yud-K, which is the name of God itself. This higher former is then Ben Yud-K, which means intelligence. That we're using our intelligence to connect to God, study of Torah. And how? That it has an offspring. What's the offspring of intelligence? Emotions. That through our study, we have a reverence and a love for Hashem, for God. This is called tshuva shlema, a perfect tshuva, complete tshuva. And this is the superiority of those who do penitence over even the perfectly righteous. The perfectly righteous, they serve in the righteous manner. The penitent, in this instance, not a penitent because you did wrong, you got out of the bad place. Now you're going into a good space. This good space is a quality of being that you have an intense longing in the heart that leads to a greater forcefulness in your approach to God, to desire to cleave to Him. The perfectly righteous is a form of service. The penitent is a form of service. Not now talking about a person called righteous, or a person called a Baal Tshuva penitent. We're talking about a path. There's the path of the perfectly right, of the righteous way, which just focuses on always doing good. This level of the penitent is also focused on doing good, but in a forceful manner, in a feeling of as distance that you want to come closer. The path of the righteous is feeling connected and therefore doing what you got to do. The penitent feels a distance, not because he did something wrong, because God's infinite and we're finite. So there's a sense of a distance and you want to overcome that distance. So that drives you to become closer. In human relationships, we have this too. That you can use your mind to understand a loved one. And you understand them and appreciate them. But then you realize, as much as I understand, there's still a distance. And that distance then just drives you to become even closer. Sometimes distance drives a person away. But that's coming not from a good place. Coming from a good place, distance, if you're really connected, doesn't drive you away. It's the incentive to want you to come closer because you are connected. Tight, like a good friend you haven't spoken to for a long time, but there's a real soul bonding that you have. The fact that you didn't speak for 6 months doesn't make you distant from that person. Because the moment you see them, there's the desire to come close. Or the moment you think about them, the desire to connect. So you make that phone call or whatever. But it's a strong desire because you sense the gap, the distance. But you're truly connected, so you bridge the gap. As opposed to the way, the path of the righteous is, there's a feeling of distance, there's a connection, there's, but it's day in, day out the same. So there isn't this gulf of desiring to overcome and to, with a greater surge, with a greater movement of the soul to connect. And that's why the superiority of the penitent over the perfectly righteous, because of that more intense longing in the heart to connect. All right. Beautiful thought for the day. Okay. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Vilma's joined us. Dana, thank you for joining. Neely from Namibia. From Hungary, Rosa. Ashley in Texas. Ahmed in Egypt. Tim in Texas. Okay, I don't see any questions. Anybody have something to share? Please do. Shmuel. All right. Jane in the Philippines says, the longer I learn Tanya, the deeper I understand myself, others, and more so Hashem. All right, thank you. And thank you for your thanks to me. A clear vision of who we are. Yeah, absolutely. When we don't have the clarity of who we are and what we are and our divine connection, then it's hard to feel connected to others at the same time. The divine connection allows us to have a divine connection to others. And that divine connection to others is coming because we're whole, we're complete, and we're worthy. Not because we did something, but because we are something. We are a reflection of the divine. We are a piece of it, as we've been learning. Which then leads us to be caring. That will express itself as we will care. We will be empathetic and giving. Why? Just because that is a divine quality. And I choose deliberately that that's how I want to be. I want to be a giver. Because that's a divine quality. Not for most people giving in a human manner, as most of us give. If we were honest and think about it, when you naturally give, you're giving in order to take. If we're honest with ourselves. We have to be very mindful and deliberate. or have worked on ourselves enough that that giving is already imbued in a part of us that is giving just because that's what you choose to be, a giver, with no strings attached. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's actually a lot of work to get there. And that is the higher level of tshuva. That you're not dealing with your negative side because that's been dealt with. Or at least on this, is that when you are whole, complete, and worthy because you are a piece of the divine, so that could lead you just to, a sense of the path of the righteous and just do everything the way you got to do it. But when you realize that as divine you are, there's still, in connection to God, He's infinite. And I'm still finite. And therefore that gulf of brings a fire in the person that you want to overcome, that to become closer. So you dig deeper inside of yourself to find a treasure that you wouldn't have found unless you have this strong passion to dig deeper, to connect more profoundly. And that will express itself in marriage to one spouse, in raising children, and even in a friendship. How? How do we dig deep? Because in those relationships we give, there's always a thought that in my giving, that there's something to get in return. And even if I do it in order to feel good about myself, so really you're taking. It makes me feel whole. In other words, I'm broken and this makes me feel whole. Or I'm whole and I'm doing this deliberately as an expression of my wholeness in giving, with not a desire to get anything back. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't get anything back, or you don't even, it's not even a hope to get back, because the hope then becomes an expectation, and the expectation then becomes something that when you don't get, there's a frustration that leads ultimately to being upset at another, which really then is not real giving. And that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a return, but that's not what's predicated your giving. And the proof will be that when you were good to somebody and you didn't get back something, you're still going to be good to that person. That you have to dig deep inside. That's penitence. That's really returning to the depth of your neshama, and it brings you so much closer to the divine nature that we have, which is truly connection with God. So it's all from within. We think, we all think about the connection with God as like, up, well, God's beyond, right? So it's above, it's beyond. So, we're kind of seeking the experience of something that's beyond us. No. Dig deep inside of you. It's all within us. Okay. All right, folks. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Judaism in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing day today. We'll continue our conversation, our farbringen, our learning tomorrow. God bless you all. Thank you all for joining.